Agua. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato and I am the host of the show. Today I am doing a solo episode in an effort to stay on task, on the task of releasing an episode on Fridays. So it's Thursday afternoon. I have a short break in between my walks and lessons later on today. In my little office doing some computer work, and I became bored and very ADD getting that work done. So I said, you know what, why don't I hop on, tell a story, give me something to release on Friday, and yeah, just give a little break to myself. So I have my little half decaf coffee, I have my microphone, I have all of you, and I'm going to tell a short story. So I've been wanting to tell this story on the podcast for some time now. It's something that happened last May, so I've been sitting on it for a while. And the reason why I want to share it is because it was an accident or an unfortunate thing that happened or an oversight or however you want to look at it. It was something that happened when I was out with the dogs, and I learned from it. It was a mistake. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. Nothing, really terrible happened. But I always think that it's good to share mistakes when there's a lesson to be learned, because that's valuable to other people that are working with dogs, especially if you're working by yourself. So most of the time I'm out there, I'm by myself. I have to make decisions on the fly. I have no support system whatsoever in the moment, and things pop off. If you're somebody that walks dogs, you understand this. I could tell stories till I'm blue in the face. But one really important thing is to learn from those mistakes, and from mistakes, I learn about dog behavior and I learn how to be safer moving forward. All that to say, I am someone that I would consider to be good at my job. I enjoy what I do. I'm able to do it with a relatively low risk and risk of injuries. It is an inherently risky job, right? We're taking dogs that are not our own. We're bringing them into public. I'm allowing them to be free off of the leash, and there are other people in public doing the same. Even though we train our dogs, they're not robots, so they are going to behave and act in certain ways that, we might not approve of or we're not comfortable with, and learning how to mitigate that risk and stay as safe as possible is my number one goal and priority when I'm out there with these dogs. And also working with customers and clients who understand the risk and also understand how seriously I take this and who follow through with training at home. Because if I'm working as hard as I can for a dog to have off-leash reliability, and there are things happening at home that are working against that effort, it's going to make my job a lot harder. So it really is a team effort between myself, the dog, and the owner. And I wanted to give a disclaimer and say, I'm not really into self-deprecation, right? So again, I'm not saying that I'm terrible at what I do. And I want to make it clear that we can learn from our mistakes, especially when the mistake is, kind of unintentional, or it was just kind of like a snowball of bad things happening all at once, which I think is what happened in this case. So I was walking two dogs last May, on a very rainy day. When I left the car, it was kind of drizzly. And by the time I got them out into probably the middle of the woods, I would say, it started to downpour, absolute deluge. The two dogs that I had were Winnie. She is a 4-year-old Bernedoodle that I trained with the remote collar. She had been hiking with me for 2 years off the leash. And Marley, who is about the same age, about the same size, a little bit of a bigger dog. She's a bully mix. And she also went through the remote collar training, off-leash reliable recall, all of that. So just to kind of back up and talk a little bit specifically about Winnie, because she was the dog that I had a little bit of an issue with on this particular day. So Winnie is a great family dog, really great owners, committed owners, super friendly towards people. And again, I had trained her using the remote collar for that reliable recall. But one thing that she had developed over the months prior to this happening was a real aversion And I would call it a fear of other dogs when she would see them while we were on our hikes. And the way that I managed that was by putting the leash on her when I suspected that there were other dogs along the way. And when I'm walking and working, I am listening, I'm looking, I'm listening for people talking, I'm listening for dog collars. You know, if you have dog tags, they kind of clang around. And generally speaking, I'm really aware of my surroundings. And with Winnie specifically, I had noticed that she was having like a pretty strong fear response when she was seeing other dogs. And nothing bad had happened when she was out with me. So we didn't like get run up by another dog and that dog attacked us or anything like that. It was just that during the months prior to this happening, I had definitely noticed that she was becoming more fearful when other dogs that she was unfamiliar with were around. And generally speaking, Winnie is not a dog that I can just introduce to any random dog and expect it to go well. She doesn't love puppy energy. She doesn't appreciate when dogs get up in her face. She doesn't really initiate much play with other dogs, but all that to say, she is very pleasant to have in a group if everybody is on the same page and the dogs are respecting each other's space. And she knows Marley very well. And Marley is a great dog to work with when introducing new dogs, in fact, because Marley is the type of dog that can assess another dog's energy and their willingness to engage or play. And she's there for a party, but she's also there to take a step back if another dog lets her know, like, hey, I don't love that energy, or I don't want you in my space or whatever. She's a very, what I would call, a conscientious social dog. So these two had been on, guys, hundreds of hikes together, okay, in the same spot. Today it was raining. That day it was raining, and I had to put my hood on, and I couldn't really see out of the sides in my peripheral, for obvious reasons. And I had my head down because it was pouring rain, and Winnie was right next to me, and Marley was a little bit ahead of me. And as we were walking along, I lifted my head up, and there was a woman with a large group of dogs, closer than I anticipated, again, because I had my head down. I wasn't as alert as I normally would be in that situation. And so I called Marley to me, put the leash on, went to put the leash on Winnie, and she was gone. I looked behind me, nowhere to be found. I'm getting like anxious even like talking about this right now, actually. I started calling for her. I looked at the other woman. I'm like, did you see a dog, a Bernedoodle larger dog? She said no. And so I started calling for her very loudly and running back the way that I came. I was calling. I had the electric collar, couldn't use it, right? I don't know where the heck she is, right? I don't know what mental state that she's in. So I'm just calling, and about 5 minutes of kind of walking back and forth on the trail that I had come in on, and then off to the right and the left of that, I stopped and grabbed my phone, and I had parked my car out in front of another client's house. And this client just so happened to be in between dogs, so she didn't even have a dog that I was working with at the time. But I called her up. Her name's Kate. And luckily she answered. I said, Kate, I said, well, first of all, she answered and she said, what's wrong? Which I thought was pretty funny. But I said, Kate, are you home right now? And she said, yes. I'm like, okay, can you just look out your front window and see if there's a dog next to my car? And she said, yeah, there is a dog next to your car. I said, great. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. And I said, can you please just put a leash on her? She's friendly, and just hang out with her. I'll be there in 10 minutes. So Winnie, I'm guessing, had seen that group of dogs, had that flight response, and just hauled ass all the way through the woods back to my car and was like, take me home. So that was a situation where I had to do some soul searching and reflecting on like, okay, why did that happen? And how can I prevent it from happening again? And what am I going to do with Winnie now moving forward? So in this situation, I got really lucky in a lot of ways. The first bit of luck that I had was that Winnie went back to my car. The second bit of luck that I had was my client was home. She was able to safely put her inside. I have no doubt in my mind that Winnie would have just waited there for me to get back. And I was on my way back because I always tell people, if you lose a dog in the woods, go back to your car, because that they know that spot. And if they become insecure, they might want to get back there just because they know that, that's probably going to be their ticket home, right? And in that moment, I didn't even follow my own advice for about 5 minutes until I had a chance to take a breath, pick up the phone, make that call. And luckily, Winnie had done exactly what I tell people dogs do. She ran right back to my car. So if I really break it down and think about the signs that Winnie was showing me before that incident happened, I know that fear response was building and building, and nothing was kind of breaking through that fear in order to kind of let her know that she didn't have to respond in that way, right? And part of that could be a training thing, right? Like I could reassociate other dogs that are off leash. I could work with the clicker. I could work with food. I do my best to provide a barrier between myself and other dogs. But the fact of the matter is, we want to be out there and say, I'm going to protect this dog from anything and never give them a negative experience. And the fact of the matter is, I can't do that. I don't have control over somebody else's dog, right? If that dog is going to run up to Winnie, that dog's going to run up to Winnie. And guess what? That might be what she is fearing the most. And what she's fearing the most might actually happen, even though there's no bites, even though there's no lunges, even though, nothing characteristically bad happened. That may be very aversive to her. Okay, just another dog getting into her space and being unpredictable for her, that may be considered super aversive, right? It might be super stressful for her. So I was getting those signals, but I was able to manage it because I was able to throw the leash on, and it never got to the point where the pack of dogs was right in front of us and it's pouring rain. My visibility is compromised. I have my hood on. I have my head down, and I wasn't able to catch it in time, right? To put the leash on and to, kind of lead her through that situation, pull her over to the side, whatever. So from that day forward, Winnie is no longer off the leash, because it doesn't matter how well I train a dog to come to me when called, because Winnie has 100% reliability with the recall, right? If that dog is a flight risk, if they get spooked, my management might fail. And we tell this to our clients all the time. We're like, management fails. You got an aggressive dog, you have to do the training because management might fail, and you have to really weigh the risk versus, what the risk, which is what might happen if management fails, and what it's worth to, keep this dog in house or have this dog off the leash or walk this dog on the street without a muzzle, whatever the case may be. So in my opinion, Winnie is not the type of dog that I would ever trust off the leash, because I don't have any control over whether or not we come across other dogs. The other thing about Winnie that was giving me more information is that she walks really well on a loose leash. And she always has, ever since she was a puppy. Never had to put a correction collar on her. If she stops to sniff something and I say, let's go, and I have just a slip lead on, I can very softly just pop that leash and she's moving alongside of me. And for a lot of handlers, they would look at that and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. You didn't even have to teach this dog how to walk on a loose leash. 1 second. Excuse me. But for me, that's a red flag, because that's telling me that this dog is nervous about the environment, and she's sticking to me like glue because she's worried about other things popping off in the environment. She's not super secure. And there have been multiple dogs that I have walked with 2 leashes, with the dog tethered around my waist, that walk on a loose leash and look like $1,000,000 walking next to me. But in the back of my mind, I am terrified that if I drop that leash while I'm picking up poop, or if something about my handling is off and that leash drops, I am terrified that that dog is going to fly the coop on me. So don't ever mistake that high level of pack drive for trainability or evidence that the dog is trained to walk on a loose leash and understands leash pressure. Because sometimes, like in Winnie's case and other dogs, mostly rescue dogs, to tell you the truth, that I've dealt with, sometimes that trait of just being so glued to your side is actually a red flag that the dog is just really insecure. So for her specifically, again, not a training issue, more of an issue of I have to accept and understand who she is as a dog and respond to that by providing a service that's going to suit her. So occasionally I do bring Winnie into the woods, even though, I know that if a dog runs up to us, it's going to send her into a dither, but a dog could run up to us on leash as well, right? It's like that stuff happens no matter where you are. And like today, I brought her to a spot that I know is very rarely populated with dogs, and I brought her with one other dog so I could, again, keep an eye out, and I have her on a flexi all the time. And she never even hits the end of that flexi, like she's near me. The other issue is Winnie's breed. So with dogs that have hair and not fur, sometimes we can miss a lot of those meta signals that dogs can give us to let us know that they're stressed, specifically with regard to like piloerection. So like, let's say a German Shepherd, like if a German Shepherd is stressed, we see that hair go up on their back, right? Any dog that has fur can let us know. Their tail carriage is a lot more distinct. Winnie's tail carriage never changes. Her tail carriage is always like, midline of her back and like wagging. When she's stressed, she doesn't tuck her tail. When she's aroused, her tail doesn't get cranked, right? This is because of breeding. The hair breeds. She doesn't give a lot of signaling through her face, right? Her eyes and her mouth certainly do, but her ears do not. So all of that to say, it's a little bit more difficult to read a dog that doesn't have those natural signals. And a dog that's been bred and has hair and, can't show you that they're aroused or their tail isn't their tail doesn't give you as many messages, it becomes more difficult. If a dog has a lot of fur and they don't get groomed, sometimes it's hard to tell if when their body stiffens versus when their body is like loose. And if you work with these doodle breeds, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So how I manage that is, again, we do leash walks, smaller groups. If we do go on a hike, it's in the most controlled way that I possibly can make it, and we still have a good time. Another thing about Winnie specifically that was a little bit of a red flag, and I learned this when I started training with her. I did about 2 or 3 months of training with her one-on-one after my hikes to do the remote collar training, but really just to build a relationship with her. And it was about a month of me taking her outside, and she would not go to the bathroom for me outside. If she was in her yard, she'd go to the bathroom. But again, in my experience, I don't know if there's anything scientific about this, but a dog that doesn't feel comfortable enough getting in that vulnerable position to go to the bathroom, to me, is a dog that's worried about aliens coming down and abducting them. Okay. And I've, again, had multiple dogs that I've walked, that don't want to go to the bathroom off their property. They don't feel safe enough to do that. And again, to me, that's a red flag. So that's how I handled her. And this is all stuff that her owners also know. And they're absolutely lovely people, done a great job with the training and all of that. And again, she's a wonderful dog, just not a dog that's a good fit to have off leash despite the training. So again, it was an oversight by me. It was a situation that I had to learn from and grow from and something that I will continue to practice, like looking at dogs, reading the dog, being able to tell if they're stressed or not. And I have 4 Bernedoodles on my walking schedule, and all 3 of the other Bernedoodles wear drag lines because they too have a little bit of a flight response when they see something in the environment that makes them a little bit nervous. Now, all 3 of those dogs don't immediately flight. Okay, so they don't immediately back up from the thing that is stimulating them or causing them stress. The other 3 freeze. So they give me a little bit of a chance, and they don't ever, again, retreat. So where I know that, and all dogs, right, when they sense something in the environment that's different, they're going to have a response, whether it's forward movement, backward movement, freezing. It might even be indifference if they're like a super social dog or a very, very stable dog. But they're going to respond because they see it, right? So then they are going to have some sort of behavioral response. Again, the other dogs that I still take hiking, I have them on drag lines because I still want to be able to communicate with them without having to use the electric collar, because the electric collar is not the right tool in that situation. If a dog is running away from you because they're scared and you call them back and they don't comply with that command, and then we add e-collar pressure, I would want to do that in a very controlled environment so I could see how that e-collar pressure made the dog respond, because I don't always think that e-collar pressure, quote unquote, works in those situations. So again, just like breaking down the different tools that I have at my disposal, the leash, the recall command, the electric collar, just a regular collar. These are all tools that, that we can't screw a screw in with a hammer though, right? So we have to be able to use the proper tool for the right situation. But I just wanted to hop on here, share that story again, real quick in between the other tasks and stuff that I'm doing today. Hopefully you got something out of that if you handle dogs. Hopefully you got something out of that if you own a dog. And hopefully you might have learned something about how you can read dogs better. Again, like safety is my number 1 priority when I'm out with the dogs. But things happen. Mistakes get made sometimes. And the best that I can do is learn from those mistakes and then moving forward, not let the mistake happen again. And I can assure you in this situation, it never happened again because that dog has never been off the leash ever since. So wanted to share that with you all. If you are interested in what you're listening to, and if it vibes with you, if it resonates with you, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Spotify and Apple, and it takes 2 seconds to hit the 5 stars. So please do that. It really helps the show get out to more people, and we will see you next time.